introduce some people. This is as far as I know, this is the first time we've had a municipal tri-pointing event. Of course, as you see on the program, this is where the towns of Muscle, or the cities of Muscle Shoals, Tuscumbia, and Sheffield come together. We have the three mayors of the cities right over here, and a long time ago that the Highpointers are just a group of list makers. So if we want a list that you can't complete, I think the municipal tri-point. There's a lot of them, but this is the first one. So first of all, I'm going to ask each of the mayors to come out here and say a few words to you. You want to start, Bill?
Thank you.
Bill Shoemaker.
Right. We certainly are honored and privileged to have this nice group here with us. And I've seen people from so many states. Thank goodness I've been fortunate enough to travel a good bit. And I think I've been to every state in the union, so I have good memories about where you live too. So thank you for joining together and having this organization that you would go to the trouble to travel. It's a real honor. We have a lot of history right here. Alabama was formed in December 14th, 1819, and Tuscumbia, which is across the street, was platted within 90 days of the fall. Our streets are all in the downtown area. We're one of the few towns in the world that has commons all the way around our town. It's 200 feet wide. Only public use buildings can be built on it. And we were actually a town before we were a state of Alabama. The building, if you go to downtown Tuscumbia, the building at the northeast corner of 5th and Main was built. We have a little discrepancy about that, but about 1815. It was before 1819 and in use as a general merchandise business, and it remains just the same. Just one block south of there, you'll find the largest spring in the United States. It's the 7th largest spring in the world. 57 million gallons a day has been dropped one aquifers alone. 96 million. If it's a kind of a rainy, wet season. We're the home birthplace of Helen Keller. You need to see that. It's a high point that you need to see. So I'm not going to take any more time, but it got a lot more history. This railroad that goes through here was the third chartered railroad in the United States, and it's the first one chartered west of the Allegheny Mountains, downtown Tuscumbia to the Cape.
Thank you.
Thank you. David? Oh, we have Ian.
Whatever.
We're in your city.
I could have gone like, now I don't know all that history, but Bill's a lot older than I am.
I'm older than everybody.
Not quite.
I will say when I first met Gary, walked into City Hall and told me what he did, I kind of went, you do what?
We get that.
I'm sure you do, but the more I heard about it and thought about it, I think it's just really a neat thing, and I can tell the camaraderie that you all have with one another, and I think that's terrific. We're certainly glad that we have this unusual geographic thing that has brought you here to see this today, and I'm not kidding. We can't stay out in the street too long. All our telephones will start ringing. Stop the traffic on Avalon. So once, and I think I understand that you're going to eventually put some kind of commemorative something plaque there, and that will be great. I've lived here. We've all lived here all our lives, I believe, and
Not yet.
up to this point, and we knew the general vicinity, but now that you're going to pinpoint it, that'll be great, and we're going to. I think I can see a three-way tug of war. We'll get the ropes out, and whoever wins gets the Walmart over there. That'll be okay.
With that kind of incentive, I will.
But we do thank you. Thank you all. I hope you've had a pleasant time thus far in your stay here. And we, once again, we're glad to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Gary, how much is the Walmart worth today?
Everything.
Well, I guess it's fitting I go last because Muscle Shoals is the youngest city. 1923 is when we were incorporated. We've got a little bit of unusual history also. In fact, there's history all over the Shoals area that a lot of people don't realize. Henry Ford and Thomas Edison actually came out to Muscle Shoals and named all the streets after Detroit, Michigan. Really? Henry Ford was trying to buy the dam from the United States government to produce his own electricity. We planned on having a city 75 miles wide and flowing over 100 or 1.2 million people. So when the government wouldn't sell it to him, we had people that actually had deeds to 25 by 100 foot lots all over the world and all over the United States. And a lot of those still come in through their families and ask where their lots are. But we have been fortunate to grow quite a lot since then. Muscle Shoals has had a long-term relationship with music since the 1960s. There's been a lot of recording artists that have come to the Muscle Shoals area and also recorded in Sheffield. And we've just been excited to be a part of history. This has been one of the most unusual groups we've ever had.
A lot of people say that.
But then you're in an unusual area where three towns border each other also. But we're glad to have you here. Suzanne Hamlin, she is a gracious host, does a great job. We do host a lot of baseball tournaments, in case you don't know. In fact, in 2007, we had the Dixie Youth World Series here and hosted 12 states, about 5,000 to 6,000 people. So anytime you're back in the Shoals area, please come and visit. If you get a chance, stop by City Hall. We've got a real nice historical display there. There's history all over the area if you have time, but thank you for coming.
How'd you get your name?
David Bradford. Well, there's two things about that. One is that when the Indians, before the dams were built, the Tennessee River was very narrow, and well, it wasn't that narrow, but it wasn't that deep. But the Indians, they said, took a lot of muscle to navigate their canoes down the river. In fact, over the Trail Tiers actually started over in the Tuscumbia, Sheffield landing. But a lot of Indian history here, but that was part of what they were saying was part of Muscle Shoals, because it took a lot of muscle to navigate the shoals. Another thing is there are mussels in the Tennessee River, which they're commercially done, and that's spelled differently. But there's a question about how Muscle Shoals got its name to that.
Thank you.
Those are the two theories that go back to it. Thank you.
One other thing, our Wilson Dam was completed that David was talking about, Henry Ford trying to buy. It started to produce munitions for World War I. World War I was over before the dam could be completed. It's 100 feet high. That's a high single lift lock. There used to be a two-stage lock. 1957, they built a single-stage lock, highest single lift lock in the world. There's one now in South America that is the same height, but it's still tied for the height. So it's a tremendous structure, and the reason it was put right where it was, as David said, the riverbed falls 100 feet in elevation in 15 miles. So that's what caused the rapids. You could get on a sailboat in Europe or Asia or anywhere else, go to New Orleans, and then put your goods on a flatboat, come up to Paducah, Kentucky, turn right into the Tennessee River, and from that place to Tuscumbia Landing is 250 miles, but you couldn't go any further. That's why the railroad was built to get around the Muscle Shoals. So it's a lot of history right there.
Also, we've had, of course, Roosevelt President Roosevelt was real responsible for the dam being built and the TVA system, which encompasses, what, 7 states? Something like that over the southeast. But actually, Muscle Shoals, or the Shoals area, was the birthplace of TVA. If you go back to TVA's charter, it says the headquarters are located in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. So that's another thing about the history. But if you get a chance ever to stop by City Hall up there, it's on Avalon. It's a real nice little historical area called Pathways. It takes everything from the Indians all the way up through the recording artists that recorded here. Everybody from the Rolling Stones to the Osmonds, Cher, you name it, they've recorded here. But also there's a real nice painting. It's an oil painting that was donated to the city a number of years ago. That was by a firm out of New York City, and it was done at the request of Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, where they laid out all the streets, and you can see the streets are located in there, and the dam, and I don't think we even had a bridge at that time that went across the river at O'Neill, but it's a huge oil painting that we had restored and hanging on the wall, but it kind of shows the TVA reservation. It shows Florence, Tuscumbia, and Sheffield, Muscle Shoals, and shows all the streets laid out like they had hoped them to be. So, thank you.
Well, David said there wasn't a bridge, but actually there was. It's a railroad bridge, but the automobiles traveled on the lower car. And I can remember in 1939 we opened O'Neill Bridge, and it was a 10-cent toll, and I remember leaning out the window and dropping that dime, but my dad wouldn't give a dime to come back, so we went up and came across the railroad bridge. There was a red and green light. When you pulled up there, if it was red, you had to wait for somebody to get off the bridge that way so you could go that way.
I wasn't around then.
I have a question. I know the railroad. This used to be the Tri-Cities. Which one of you is the new one?
We're the new one.
Oh, Muscle Shoals
It used to be Florence. Who's first? Florence or Tuscumbia?
No, Tuscumbia is old.
Tuscumbia, Florence, Sheffield, Muscle Shoals. So I'm the young kid on the block.
Is when they changed the name.
We're the Quad City.
Yeah, now the Quad City.
The original railroad that came through.
The original railroad that ran only from Tuscumbia to Decatur was the Tuscumbia Railway Authority, and then 7 gentlemen came together in 1832 and decided that because all the freight that came up the river had to come off at Tuscumbia Landing. Had some big, huge 4-story buildings that could take heavy loads off and load it onto wagons, and by mule we pulled it from the landing, 2 miles up to Tuscumbia and stored those goods until they were distributed by horseback or whatever. But then the 7 gentlemen in 1832 formed a union, and they decided they would build a wagon type road so they could carry those goods to Decatur, which is 47 miles. And then you could reload your goods back on a flatboat and go more than 200 miles on up the river. So then in soon after 32, 33 or 4, the steam engine was invented, and the guy built one in England.
Yes.
And so those 7 gentlemen got him to come here and bring his engine, and they put the tracks down, and the guy that built it operated that train for 18 years himself. So that really broke it loose.
Wow.
Then in just prior to the Civil War, Memphis to Charleston was to go along the south line of Tennessee along US 64, but through a little persuasion and influence of some very famous people in Tuscumbia, we got it to come through Tuscumbia. Wow.
You want to, excuse me, I know we're tired of talking, but you want to touch on the Trail of Tears from Tuscumbia?
Yeah.
Chili McIntosh was a half Indian. He married an Indian chief's daughter, and he became the chief. And he was it Chickasaw, Suzanne? I can't remember. I think it's Chickasaw Nation.
Creek.
So,
he was a Creek.
He was a Creek, and he was over in the edge of Georgia, I believe. But anyway, all the Indians from south and east were brought to Tuscumbia because of our water supply, our great spring. They camped all over Tuscumbia, and they were treated very well by the citizens there. In the early 1830s, they were treated very well, and they were given medicine, clothing, and food until they could regain their strength. And then they went down on the little railroad to the Tuscumbia Landing, which is a couple of miles, got on flatboats and went to the Oklahoma Territory. And so virtually everything on the south side of the Tennessee River from south to east came in from Georgia and everywhere. There's records, we do have records of how many people came each day, and they are thousands and thousands. Chili McIntosh wrote a letter expressing their appreciation to Tuscumbia for caring for the Indian nation. As